Let's build a Hello World kind of application with Silverlight 2 Beta 2. I'm going to do some things in this video that I won't explain. We'll come back and explain them all in subsequent videos, so don't worry if there's things that you really want more depth on. We'll make more videos about those things. What we want to do here is just use Visual Studio and Expression Blend to show you how those two tools work together and how you get going with a Silverlight application. So let's just go ahead and do File, New, Project. And we'll go for a Silverlight application in C#. I will call that Silverlight application Hello World. And straight away Visual Studio says to me, would I like to create a web application to test this Silverlight application? Because you need to host a Silverlight application on an HTML page, and you have a choice as to whether you want a new website or whether you want to just make an HTML page that's stored in the file system. Generally speaking, you can do less from HTML in the file system than you can from a website, so I'm going to go for a website. You can also create a web application project if you want to. I'm going to click OK. Okay, so what we get here is the startings of a Silverlight application. Let's just close some of these windows down. We get a website up here and we get a Silverlight application down here that will be referenced by the website. Okay, so let's build a Hello World style application. All I'm going to do is go to my page.xaml here, and I'm just going to take this grid and put some lines into it. So let's just have some row definitions in here, and I'll have a row definition, I'll have another one and another one. So we have 3 row definitions. And I'm going to tell the grid to show the lines so that we can actually see those row definitions. You see them now on the editor up above. So what I'm going to do is into the first row I'm just going to add a text box, and we'll just set a margin on that of 5, let's say. And then what I'm going to do into the next grid, so I'll have a button, and we'll put that into grid.row equals 1, margin equals 5 again, and we'll put some content on there that says click me. There's my button. And finally at the bottom I'm going to have a text block, and this text block I will just put into grid.row equals 2, margin equals 5, and we'll say text equals not set. And that looks a little bit ugly, so what I'll do is I'll make the text alignment to be center, and we'll also make the vertical alignment to be center, just so that it all fits nicely in there. Okay, so I've sketched out a very basic UI using some pieces of XAML. Now I want to be able to program against this text box and the text block, so I'm going to give them names. I'll call this text input, and we'll call this text block down here text output, something like that. Sorry, excuse me, xname equals text output. So we've named those two things. I also want to handle the click event on my button, so I'm just going to say click equals on click. And then what we'll do is we'll pop to the code behind this and we'll write an event handler. We'll just say event handler on click. And what we want to do here is take the text from the text box and put it into the text block. So we'll say text output.text equals text input.text. Let's go and put a breakpoint on here. Let's press F5. Let's switch on debugging in web.config so that we can debug ASP.NET. We're running up the ASPX page. We should get our little UI on the screen. We click the button. Let's put some text in here. Hello World. We click the button, we get our breakpoint, standard .NET debugging as you'd expect. We press F5 and we get our text copied from here to here. We've built a Hello World style application with Silverlight. Now, whilst we've got this basic UI, we might want to hand this to a member of our team who could make this look a little bit nicer. And to try and illustrate how that works, let's move over to Expression Blend. I've got version 2.5 June preview, which works with Silverlight 2 Beta 2. So I'm just going to launch up Expression Blend. And in Blend what we'll do is open this very same project that we've just been working on. So we do File, Open Project Solution. I'm going to see Demo, and in there we've got our Hello World application. We'll open up that solution file, and the very same solution opens up straight away in Expression Blend, giving us the same view of the projects that we saw inside of Visual Studio. So we share everything between Blend and Visual Studio. Okay, so let me just shrink this down. Let's open up this XAML page we've just been working on. So we get our XAML file. And we get the same UI and a tree-based representation of what makes up that UI inside of Expression Blend. So if we had a designer working on our team, he or she might take this UI and start to style it a little bit. Let's just do some simple things. Let's take this background and change it into some kind of gradient. So we'll have it going from some kind of dark red at the top to a brighter red down towards the bottom, make it quite garish at the bottom there. Okay, so imagine that looked nice. And then we might build in something like maybe some different kind of layout. Maybe the designer would say, well, actually, no, this piece of UI doesn't need to be so big. This piece of UI over here needs a different kind of margin. Let's just say take that to 15 or something like that, and space that out differently. And then they might say, well, I want to add a little bit of interactivity. So they might take this button here that we've got, and they might want to build some kind of animation. So let's go and add an animation here. We'll add a storyboard. We'll call it spin. Whoops, casing's gone wrong. Let's call that spin. We'll OK that. And all we'll do is we'll say that sort of half a second here, we'll take this button and we'll just rotate it slightly to the right. And at 1 second, we'll take the button and rotate it slightly to the left. And at 1.5 seconds, we'll rotate the button back to where it was in the first place, more or less. Let's just test that. Okay, it's not perhaps as quick as it could be, so let's just drag these things in and make it a little bit quicker. And that will do for the purposes of what I want. So now we've built this animation called spin. And so let's stop recording and let's save this. Let's close those files off. And pop back over to Visual Studio, and in Visual Studio we realize that things have been changed, so let's click OK. Let's reload that. We can see in Visual Studio that things have been changed. And as a developer, I can either have a look in the XAML, or maybe I've talked to my designer. My designer has told me that there's a new storyboard in here, a new animation called spin. So what I could then do is when we get into the code here, when you click the button, I could make that animation begin by just doing spin.begin, and we press F5 in Visual Studio now. And when we click that button, let's put some text up here, click the button, we see we get our animation just to give us a bit of feedback. So it's a pretty lame example, but you get the idea that the designer can do something and then feed it back to Visual Studio with the developer. Now just to take that a step further, if you go back to Expression Blend and reopen that XAML file, what we might want is there might be a designer who wants to change the look and feel of this button altogether. He doesn't want this rounded rectangle for their button. So what you can do with that is edit the template that makes up the button. We can either create a template based on a copy of this one or create an empty one. I'll create an empty one. We'll just go ahead and do that. And now we have no UI whatsoever for our button. The first thing we'd probably want is for the original content to come through. So I'm going to insert a content presenter here which will present the original content, which was click me. And we'll just make sure that that thing is laid out in the middle, so we'll just center it horizontally and vertically, and there's the original content coming through. Now I might want some arbitrary UI behind this. I'm just going to indicate that here by drawing something with a pencil. So let's take a pencil and let's just draw anything really. I'm just going to try and sketch something out here. It's not going to be very accurate because I'm using a mouse, but let's just go and draw some squiggly shape and indicate that that can be in there. I want the content presenter to be after that so that it shows on top. And then let's take this path and we'll just make its fill something bright. Let's make it yellowy. Might move that up there. So there's our new button. And we might want to add some behavior here such that when the mouse is over this button, for instance, let's take the stroke of the button and let's thicken it up to say 3, something like that. And that should give us a little bit of behavior when the mouse is in. When the mouse is pressed, maybe we want the stroke to still be 3, and maybe we also want the color to change. So let's make the color change to be something really garish. Let's go for green on the path there. Oh, excuse me, we're doing that on the stroke. Let's change the path to be green. So that's when it's pressed, and maybe we want that to happen over 0.1 seconds or something like that. So once again, let's save that. Let's just close that document off. Let's pop back over to Visual Studio, which knows that we've had a change. Let's press F5 in Visual Studio. And without the developer having to do anything, the designer's been doing some more work. Admittedly, the application looks worse than it did before. But as we mouse into this, you see that animation running to give us a little highlight that that's happening. When we click the button, notice it goes green now. And we click it, it goes green and does its animation. But it's still working just like it did before, and the designer's just been in there and restyled the UI, working beautifully, really just hand in hand with the developer, sharing these assets across and making this stuff work with Expression Blend and Visual Studio. So hopefully you get a feel as to how we start building Silverlight applications. We'll come back and explore a lot of these topics in follow-on videos.